Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, but I just really like to sort of remind myself of how grateful I am, especially with everything I have going on. I just married off a daughter last week, and I've got a son getting married next week. So the fact that I even have the wherewithal to be doing a podcast right now is pretty amazing. But folks, the only reason that I even have someone to talk to right now is because of you and everything that you do, all the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, everything about it. Folks, I appreciate you so much, and you're the reason that we're here. So, when we made the move to go to 7 days, you folks just responded beautifully, and we're still killing it. So, I appreciate it, and it's all about you. If you're a fan of the program and you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. It's time to take a sip of my preferred beverage. So here we go. As usual, folks, absolutely fantastic. Just absolutely perfect. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. That's right. We're drinking Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. They support veterans, just like the gentleman we have on here with us today. And folks, if you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for what you've done for our country. You're the reason that we get to sit here and have the conversations and the opinions and things like that that we get to have. And if you look at the rest of the world right now, there's a lot of countries out there that can't because they don't have people like you who stood up for them on that line. Folks, you know I love you, and I'm glad that you found a home here with us at the Power Man Podcast. Freedom Hill Coffee, folks, they support it as well. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. Oh, my goodness, he's already laughing at me. All right, folks, that's right. This gentleman today, he's the author of the upcoming book, The Strength Within You. It's Always Too Soon to Quit. He's had success in corporate America. He sold the Yellow Pages. Okay, and tell you what, that's dating he and I because we know what that's all about. That was some rough work. He's also a serial entrepreneur, and this gentleman is a Marine. So please welcome to the show, Jay Setchell. Jay, brother, how are you doing today?
Wow, thank you for the audacious introduction, and I'm glad we got the your listeners as well. Uh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready to rock and roll and do whatever we want to do and
Sounds
answer
good.
questions or move forward.
Sounds good. I do want to make sure that I say thank you for your service, brother.
Uh,
I'd say
you're
that to all
you're
my veterans.
you're more than welcome. And my son was a Marine, and I say was he's just because he just recently got out, but still once a Marine, always a Marine. You know how
Right
that
on.
goes. Hoorah!
Exactly. All right. So we're on here to talk, of course, about your story. A lot of the stuff that you've had to deal with in your life. You've definitely had to overcome some adversity, and you've put it into a book that's coming out soon. The Strength Within You. It's always too soon to quit. Jay, you can start your story anywhere you like, brother. You've earned that. So tell everybody, who is Jay Setchell? What are you about, and what brings you here today, man?
I, I, that's a good question. No, it's I who am I? I'm just a young buck that, like you said, except I'm considerably older than you are. So we have to look at that. But I was born and raised on a big farm in northern Illinois, working farm, fed a lot of cattle, hogs, uh, crops. We did a lot of agricultural spraying. So I really learned a lot of responsibility very, very young. I mean, by the time I was 5 years old, I was, picking up eggs and sorting eggs and feeding calves. And by the time I was 8, I was driving tractors and climbing silos. And I always flew. My dad took me flying all the time. When I was 14 years old, I soloed, flew by myself for the first time when I was 14 on
Wow.
an old tail dragger on a sod strip. So, but I was always led with think ahead, plan ahead, know ahead, and I think that's where a lot of my life started. Was is what are the possibilities? In other words, I don't believe in asking why. I believe in asking why not, because I think that's very important. That you can tell me, well, why you want to do that? Well, why not do that? So I think that from that, but I went from that, went into the Marine Corps. Well, my cousin had been in the Marine Corps, and he told me not to go into the Marine Corps. So you know how that that goes. It's like when he says you don't want to do that, and I knew that I would be a better Marine than he was, so I had to do it. But did the Marine Corps. Had a couple of problems there with physically, but got out. I started some different businesses after I recouped from a year in a naval hospital. Um, I've started multiple businesses. I've started probably 20 businesses. Some I've sold, some I've just shut down, some run their course, if you will. Everything has a life. It's kind of like the trees come out in the spring and the leaves come out, and in the fall they turn beautiful colors and they fall off, and you go through winter and they need to rejuvenate. I think that we all need to rejuvenate, kind of like you drinking your coffee. So it's like it keeps you moving. But I did that. I had another a drunk hit me, and that was another death experience. I started more businesses in between that. Continued on. I broke my neck right after I started working for the Yellow Pages, and had another. I don't know. It's an ongoing story of never quitting.
Wow.
That's really what it is. I think that's the best thing is to say, let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the future.
Sure.
But your past and what you've done and what you've accomplished or what you've failed at or what you've been through or what you've lived through is what makes you and who you are today.
Right. Right. Well, that's what sounds like it's where you develop the tools to be able to move forward with the idea of, it's always too soon to quit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You unpacked a lot just in those couple of sentences. So let me piece some things together for the folks who didn't get the chance to read your bio. You obviously grew up on the farm, learned the work ethic real early.
Sure.
But and of course, joined the Marines. How long were you in the Corps?
Well, I enlisted for 3 years, but I died at 17 months and 12 days in the Marine Corps and um, spent a year in the Naval Hospital and got out. They Then I had to fight for my retirement,
Wow.
and they gave me my disability, which I didn't get my disability though. I had to fight for it for 21 years, and which is ridiculous with no
Right.
back pay. And but I finally got it. And but that's a horror story that most veterans that are on here have ever they've all experienced. You deal with the
Sure.
VA, it's just not a. Some parts are okay, and in general, it's no good.
Right. I've
And
heard a lot of horror stories about it, so I understand.
it's terrible. And back in the Vietnam days, I know a lot of these young men today that go through the VA or get with help with the VA are they're very appreciative. And I've been told that, and I appreciate them telling me that it's the guys from Vietnam that went through it that really suffered, really paid the price.
Sure.
But uh, that's I can't remember what else you
It's
had asked
okay.
me
No,
something.
I got you. You've mentioned dying a couple of times now, so let's clear that up for the audience here. You've had 73 surgeries over the years,
I had
right?
73. My 73rd was 4 months ago.
Okay, and you died three
Yes, sir.
times.
Yes, sir. And I've been uh, right on death's door where my wife was told to go home and make funeral arrangements uh, 2 other times.
Were
And
these? No, go ahead, please.
no, no, and then I've had a couple of other times that they didn't know if I would make it, but they didn't. I wasn't quite that close, but I was kept going down, 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 and finally turned around. But so it's like the first time. Um, I didn't. This wasn't a near death experience, but it should have been. I turned 17 on New Year's Eve, 1967, and no, 66. I'm sorry. And 5 days later, I came down out of a silo, and I stood on a feeding auger to walk down the auger about 6 or 8 feet to get off of it before it got turned on. And I was just ready to jump up or jump off of it, and my foot started to slip. It felt like, but my grandfather had turned the auger on and then turned it off, on and off. But it turned enough that it took my right leg down underneath the auger, sliced my boots open, and sliced everything open,
Mm.
snapped my ankle, broke my ankle, and I was able to push off and land in a snowbank because we had, about a 4 or 5 foot snowbank about 5 feet from the feeding auger. This was in northern Illinois, January 5th or 6th, 1967.
My
So up
goodness.
there it snows a lot. Well, sometimes it snows more than others, but as you're familiar,
Hmm.
but uh, but from there, the Marine Corps, I was taking another gentleman that was on my CID team to base who had been badly worked over. I don't. It's a long story. I just should not get into. Uh, but they had they beat him really badly, cut his head open on the left side, down over the top of his skull. His ear was hanging off, down into his neck. Uh, his wife was there. I showed up there, and I was just had just gotten into their apartment. And I heard a scream, and they were outside. And down at the far end of the NCO barracks, I saw three guys running because I was yelling and screaming on my way down to try finding them. But they cut him open badly. I got it. We got him in the car. She sat in the middle and put her right arm around his neck and held on the left side a pressure compress that I showed her what to do and how to do it to keep the biggest part of the bleeding uh, to minimize it. So we headed the back gate to go into the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton, California, the Marine Corps base, and there were 4 or 5 cars behind us. At this point, I remember nothing. I remember nothing, but I know what to say and how to say it because of all the reports and the men and so on and so forth. But
Right.
there was a semi pulling across the road that had pulled out of a orange packing area, and the semi was loaded. Headlights weren't working well, if at all. No side lights, no side markers, everything covered with mud and dirt. And we hit them in the drivers. And the
Oh,
car crumpled up. It was a 66 Ford Galaxy 500 XL. It went from 17 and a half feet to 9 feet long. It completely crushed and then started on fire. And three Marines coming the other direction. And one of them still alive. I still stay in touch with him. I didn't meet him until about 10 years ago. Very heartfelt, lots of tears. We still have tears. Um, I know that one thing I've learned out of that whole experience was how do you say thank you to a man that was willing to give his life to save yours? Just like I was willing to give my life to save Stitz, who was the guy I was taken to the hospital.
yeah.
But at any rate, they saw a glow down the road. They got a little further down the road. They pulled up and they could see there was a car on fire on the other side of a semi. And we were trapped inside. They didn't know if we were civilians or Marines. We just, because the Marine Corps, you can't wear your uniform off base, not your utilities, your work uniform. And they piled out of the car and they started work on getting us out. And it's I go into a lot of detail, but I don't I just as soon not. But they had a real bad problem getting me out because my face was crushed down into the steering wheel. I ended up with 32 facial fractures,
Oh
skull
my God.
fracture. Yeah, I was all entangled up under the wheel, or under the what had been the steering wheel, up under the dash. My right leg was on fire. The car was on fire under the hood. Um, uh, inside the car and then in the trunk area. And they worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, and they finally got me out. They got me through the window. And Walter still says that he is sure that they broke some of my bones pulling me out, but it took all three were Marine Corps captains on tour. They were at staging battalion on the way to Vietnam,
Wow.
on their multiple tours in Vietnam. But at any rate, um, they got me out and they got Linda out. Linda, uh, I was. They said you were gone. There was nothing. There wasn't anything that you were on fire. You were burning. You were crushed. There was just nothing there. It took us a minute or so to even get our fingers up into the steering wheel and pull your face out it was just crushed into. It's like a smashing a pumpkin into a tire wheel, spokes
Wow.
on a bicycle, you know.
Yeah.
So, but at any rate, they got me out. Linda didn't come out as bad, but the tire had broken out. I found I'll just say this now because it's stuff I learned later. But the tire had ripped loose out of the trunk, came through the trunk, bounced off the top of the car apparently, and taken off the top of her head. Plus, she had slid up over the gear shift, and she was in a coma for 18 months and then passed away.
Oh,
And
wow.
they got Stitz out of the car, uh, but they couldn't get the door. The door was so hot from the fire. The fire was worse on his side of the car, and he ended up with 60% burns. Wasn't broken up as bad as I was. Did have a broken hip, lost his teeth or quite a few of his teeth, and remember an eyelid that was burned off or torn off from them telling me about it. Um, but the door popped open when all of them were trying to take their whatever they could to get the door for just a split second to pull on it, and they believe that he opened the door up uh, on the inside by chance. So he was probably conscious enough to realize it. But they drug him over by a tree about 50 feet away. And then Walter told me that when he turned to go back to the car to make sure nobody else was in the back seat by chance, or what was left, well, there wasn't anything left in the back seat, but who else could have there been? Um, he felt a tug on his shirt, and he said Stitz had a death grip on it, and was like he was wondering, were we out? And he assured him that we were out of the car, and and then when he said they're out, he let go. But Walter told me as soon as he turned, he said the car completely blew up. I mean, what hadn't it blew the doors completely open. It blew the what glass hadn't been shattered if there was any. It just
Man.
blew up. It melted into the pavement. It was bad. But the one thing that really gets me to this to kind of end this portion of this is the one thing that Walter told me that made me really cry a lot. And sometimes I get emotional, and I try not to get into too many details because I still get I've had to remember to write the book. I had to remember things that I tried to forget for 55 years,
Yeah.
and it's horrific. I mean, my PTSD from it is not good. So if I get choked up or something, it's you'll know why. But uh, when the three captains were going over and the emergency teams were starting to get there, and the fire was raging and so on, the fire department, whatnot, um, the uh, he said that all three of them looked at their arms and they had skin hanging off their arms and their hands, and so they figured that they had been burned badly, and they knew they had the doors were hot and so on and so forth. But when they were getting cleaned up, the skin that was getting cleaned off of them and taken off of them was our skin. They had pulled on us so hard to get us out of the car that they had pulled our own skin off. That's how much effort they put into
Hmm.
it, and that's something that's very. It's hard for me to talk about because some of it was my skin as well, you know. And knowing Roy was burned 60% over his body, I can't imagine how much of his, because mine wasn't near as bad.
Yeah.
but but still it happened. But we got to the hospital. My memory is just that I was floating above my body, looking down, and three doctors finally were quitting and starting to walk away. And I used every foul word I ever knew in the Marine Corps and made up some, I'm sure, to get back. Don't leave me. I'm alive. I'm in there. Don't leave me. And I had that bearing of mind, if you will, that I was alive, but they were walking away. And at that time, a door opened to the right, and I just how do I remember this? I don't know. Um, but a gentleman walked in. It was a Navy uh, uh, not orthopedic, worked on jaws, facial surgeon, dental surgeon, and he got looking at me and working on me, and he said, "Hold on just a minute." And these other three doctors stopped, and make a long story short, he reached in, he cut a tracheotomy in my neck, um, and the blood just blew out like a whale, like whale surfacing. And he had dress whites on, Navy officer dress whites, and I covered the wall, I covered his uniform, the blood went everywhere, and these other three doctors realized that hey, I wasn't as dead as they thought I was, and which I'd been trying to tell them, but they obviously couldn't hear me because in my mind, I was floating. I just couldn't get any higher because of the ceiling. But um, I had drowned in my own blood. I had,
Oh my God.
I had, well, I had four broken ribs on the left side, three on the right side, and my lung was punctured twice. My left lung punctured twice, my right lung punctured once, and so all the bleeding had gone into my lungs. I had died on the inside, which put pressure on my heart, so they couldn't hear my heart. I had no heart. I had no beating. I had drowned in my own blood, and so with the blood exploding out, releasing, decompressing, I, 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 I was in a coma for quite a while. So, but that I don't remember much after that. I mean, there was probably a few minutes in there, and I've lost that time factor over the years. But then I spent about 2.5 to 3 weeks in a coma, um, in intensive care, and they put me back into a coma when I came out of my coma because I was such a mess. And uh, I know that Walter, Captain Reeves, uh, told me, he said, Jay, I did 3 tours in Vietnam. I never saw a body as messed up as yours, head to toe,
Hmm.
everything. I mean, so
That's
I kind of take that as a not good news, but a compliment. So because I survived,
right.
but it's the things you do and go through that really I the two memories that really stick with me a lot. One was during my coma. Um, is my face was crushed so bad, my left jaw had been broken off, twisted down, and my teeth sticking through. And I remember the roof of your mouth. If you run your tongue over the roof of your mouth, you got the little ridges. Okay, and I've got a scar about a half inch wide, and maybe 3/8 of an inch wide now over all these years. That's just over it. It splits those things. And that's where my roof of my mouth, my upper palate was broke open. And I remember sticking my tongue up into my nasal passage. And I know that's
Okay.
gross. It's gross, but I remember it, It's like I remember it
Sure. That's a little
like
traumatic. I can
well,
understand.
and I remember I could hear voices. And then right when I came out of my coma, initial coma, I recognized a voice, really recognized a voice. It was my mother. And I say this in my book, and I couldn't see, I couldn't, I don't, I couldn't see her, but I could hear her voice. And when I heard it, I had tears come out of my left eye, and I remember them running down over my cheek, and it was just like somebody just put a match up and then just drug it down, just hot, burned my cheek. Now I don't know how swollen I was. I mean, my both my zygomas, eye sockets had been broken. My jaws were crushed. I mean, everything was bad. I don't. I remember. I remember at some point after they put me into an induced coma, and they took me out about 10 days later. And I do remember at some point asking if I could look at a mirror or writing a note. Could I look in a mirror? And they told me you don't want to, and I never did. So I don't know how bad it was, but
Ugh.
I
I
know my
mean,
mother couldn't recognize me.
I mean, the whole thing's absolutely horrific, brother. I mean, this is the fact that you even made it through that to be able to tell the
Well,
story is a miracle all by itself.
I, it, it, it is. It surprised me, and my mother gave me something you just mentioned. Uh, made me think of something that I put in my book. Matter of fact, I got a picture of it in my book. My mother had a little packet, a little tablet about maybe three and a half, I don't know, 3 inches long, something like that, a couple inches wide, and she'd make little notes in it. And farmers always carried them because they put seed count or acre count or gallons used or something in them. But anyhow, at some point, my hands worked well enough that I could write, and it's hard to read it, but once it says what it says, printed underneath the picture, you can read it. But it said, "Am I gonna live?" There was another 2 pages that said, "Will I die?" Another page that said, "I love you." But the one that we put in the book is, "Am I gonna live?" And it's like, think about the state of mind I had to be in to wonder if I was going to live.
Yeah.
And I'd already been in the hospital 5.5 or 6 weeks in coma and in induced coma and going through stuff. And then they still had to re-break my jaws and reset my face and wire everything together. And
I can't
and
even imagine.
I I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't. There is no words for it. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. My tracheotomy. I had a. This is old school. This is 1969, right? And so I had a little pump to the right of me that had a hose that they would once in a while suction my tracheotomy out, and I could feel it in my lungs. This little hose, and I thought, one day, why can't I do that? So I started doing it myself. I was suctioning my lungs out
Oh my.
through my tracheotomy, and well, it is gross, but you know what? And people today wouldn't believe that you could do it, but you did it.
That's what I mean.
You read the stories about a guy that's got his leg broken and it's crushed by a tree, and he's out in the woods, and he's up in Canada or he's in northern Michigan or wherever, I don't know, and he gets his pocket knife out and he cuts his leg off because it's already crushed, and then they crawl, a quarter of a mile to their pickup truck or whatever, to a road, and you wonder, how do they do that? It's a superhuman thing that you just do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't talk. I mean, when they got me back, I had intermaxillary wires put in with my jaws wired together for months and months, and you can't talk anyhow because my lungs were very weak from having drowned in my own blood. Plus, tracheotomy doesn't let you speak because you can't verbalize
Right.
anything out. Eventually, you can learn how to do it by covering up your tracheotomy, and you can kind of, through your, luckily, unfortunately, but luckily, my front teeth were all busted out. So you can kind of talk like this,
Wow.
it's not a pretty scene,
No.
but I, I, like my leg burn, when they cut it off, it looked like about, I don't know, a 5 pound, 10 pound piece of liver, a foot and a half long and 10 inches wide, and I don't know, 4 or 5 inches tall. And they were going to stick a scalpel in it, to cut it off. And this is
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't know, 8, 9 weeks afterwards, or drain it. Well, it didn't drain. It was just like a big chunk of liver.
Yeah.
And they quite literally cut it and lifted it off. Well, then my leg was all red. You could just raw muscle, but it got a black covering on it. It was very crusty, very hard, and that's what they call debreeding it. You can look it up. And when they would pull it up from the edge with a pair of tweezers, and then you took a pair of scissors and you'd snip off some of that black dead skin. And if your leg bled a little bit, you didn't feel it because the nerves were all dead. But still, I did that, and then you soak it in betadine soak. I did that myself. Even when I went to the orthopedic surgery ward, where I was there for months, I did it for. I debrided my own burn for about 8 months, 8.5 months, every
Wow.
day, twice a day.
I
you
mean,
know,
so
but
the only way that you can approach this the way you did is if you went into this with, a totally different mindset than what people have nowadays.
I,
Where you just went into it with a mindset of, you can't quit. I have to move forward, and just a very practical, if I'm going to survive, then this is how it has to be.
that's really the only way you can look at it. And I've been asked, I'm going to say this about it at the time right now is I've been asked by people over the years, why do you think you were able to come out of it?
Hmm.
And I go, well, I owe it to two things mainly. Well, three things: the grace of God, number one,
Okay.
but but I owe it to the fact that I was young. I was very much in shape. I was very gung ho. I was a gung ho Marine. I mean, there's nothing I can't do, nothing I can't accomplish. But the other thing is, and I say this jokingly, but it is funny, really. I never had permission from my upper command that I could die, so I had to stay alive. It's like I didn't want to have a court martial or something because I died without permission. If I go in AWOL,
All of
right?
that is the Marine in you,
Yeah,
100%.
it's
Yep.
kind of like that. You can't quit. You don't. What's the matter with you? Get going.
Right.
It's just like, and if you have that instilled in your heart, but I always had that in me. The Marine Corps just exemplified it
Right.
more. It really, because I was raised that way.
Right. Was this the first death experience that you
That was the
encountered?
first.
This one?
That was the first one.
I'm hoping this was the worst one.
Um, it was the one that tore my body up the most, but my third one was worse. I think. Over the years, I've thought about it,
Okay. Give me a
because
brief idea of the second one, and then let's
well,
cover the third one because I
the
know
second,
this goes into the
yeah,
book. So,
the second one really, I got hit almost head on my left side by a drunk driver on
hmm,
a narrow road out in the middle of back before cell phones and before pagers and
right. I remember
all
those
that.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got thrown out of his truck, no seat belt, got run over by his own truck and killed. I had my seatbelt on. I was raised with seatbelts. You always used them.
Right.
And I rolled six times down into a very, very deep ditch. Um, my left side of my car was torn off. The pillar of the car had ripped my left side. I had busted ribs again. Took my left shoulder out, bone out of the back, severed the deltoid muscle. Blah blah blah. And I remember my mouth. I remember the noise, and I remember flipping. But without my seatbelt, I would have never made it. But
Sure.
I was crushed badly up underneath the same damn thing again, under the steering wheel. I've got pictures of it from the passenger side that they took later on when the car was at a junkyard or dealership. But I was out of my body. I was way up and I was ascending into the clouds. And I remember the emergency crew finally showing up, but I'd bled out,
Uh,
and they took and gave me a direct infusion, from somebody that was there because they didn't have blood with me, and they had a guy that was O positive, and I'm O positive, and O positive is the best one you can have because you can give it to anybody. And they did that, and they went through another guy that had it, and then I don't remember. I don't remember much, but I do remember peaceful. Why can't I get out? They didn't have a. This was before the jaws of life stuff, and they had to get a hacksaw to cut the steering wheel and stuff, which scared me because uh, I could smell gas real bad, and I didn't want to be in a fire again. I'd already been there. I didn't want to
I'm
do it again.
sure. Yeah.
And but they had to go to the farmer down the road, and he wasn't home, so they had to break into his shop to get a hacksaw to come back up because they didn't have a hacksaw in the emergency vehicle. This is back before all the fancy emergency stuff
Right.
we have today. This is 50 years ago. But I remember it was like peaceful. It was like I was being called. It was like, and I use the word angels in my book. It was like they were calling me to come on. That this is
Wow.
And the only thing I can pretty much say just quickly is that I think once the blood got back into me, they got something going. Whatever they did, the next thing I know, it was like 3 days later, and I was in the hospital. And
Oh man. Okay.
so I didn't make it to heaven, or go with the I didn't go with them, whoever they
Sure.
were, and they were very peaceful. It was calm. I don't remember pain. I don't remember. It's just like the Marine Corps. I don't remember any pain. Now, at first, it's probably shock and you're
Sure.
dead, but then again, they drug you up with it. So it's like, you know,
Right.
but
You, you talk about mindset and how to look at things and the way you have to approach these issues and how you never quit. Um, when you came out of and regained consciousness and you're in the hospital again, having to deal with this again, a really long recovery, how do you not fall into that here we go again syndrome and lose faith, like I can't do this again, type of
um,
feeling? How do you maintain that strength in that situation, brother?
it's a fair question, but I didn't have that. I never had that feeling till my third time, and kind
Okay.
of kind of kind of funny. My mother actually came in. I don't remember the fourth or fifth or sixth day, whatever, and she had a rolled up newspaper and she was smacking me with it. She said, "Quit doing this to us. Quit doing this to us." And and I never thought about it at the time, but yeah, I mean, 4 years before, she's looking at me and doesn't even recognize me.
Yeah,
At least this time, I mean, my face was cut up pretty badly, and I remember glass in my mouth, and I remember that kind of stuff. But I didn't have to the extent, but I had another TBI, of course, and my head was really torn up bad in the first one. I mean, I
yeah,
mean,
sure.
I've it just beyond
Well,
it. But I don't know. I never felt that way. I just thought, what am I going to do next? What can I do to get forward? What can I do to move ahead?
that's
And it's
amazing.
kind of like being back on the farm and being raised that way. It's like that if you blow a hydraulic hose on a tractor, what am I going to do? How can I get it fixed? Do I have the parts? If I don't, I've got to walk home, a quarter mile or 2 miles, depending on what fields you're in. Get the parts, get back up, get it fixed, and get on the road and get moving again. And
Right.
every minute you're down, or every minute you're not doing something, you're wasting time. And I would say that I think about this point is in my life is when I realized, and I realized it more on my third one, but is just, and I don't know if I put it in the book or not, but I've said this before, is you know if you're breathing, you better keep moving. You better keep moving. If you're breathing, do something, think something, do something, act on something. But you got to be keep moving, or you're going to die.
Yeah.
Because once you quit moving, you die. That's it. You just can't.
Basically, you were raised where adversity is just part of life. Unlike the folks who were, kind of like running around the world today, where they were raised where there was no adversity,
Well,
and so little things happen and they lose their minds.
it's not just adversity; it's just inconvenience. It's like I was raised in a house that had been added on to multiple times since the early 1800s. And so summers were hot, and they were, the falls were hot. You're up in the kind of the same area, and you get those days where it's 100 degrees for, but yet that in another 3 4 months it's going to be 25 below zero, and it's going to be windy, and we got cattle to feed. And guess what? It's an inconvenience. Big deal. If you're cold as heck and freezing to death, you're going to warm up. If you're hot, you're going to cool off. Go out and take the hose and soak yourself down, or go jump in the swimming, or not swimming pool, in the pond, or something. But people today, they want to have that automatic start for their car. that says, "Oh, I got to cool my car down before I go out and get in." I can't buy a car anymore unless it's got vented seats that cool me down,
Right.
or warming seats, or what. I don't get it. Suffer. Don't put up with it. God made you to live through that,
Right.
and you're going to do it. It's just whether or not you can accept it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you know, and,
Absolutely.
and that's where it gets back. And I say that I'm going to say this now too because it's in my book, and I really I believe it is. It's 10 two-letter words, very very basic, very basic. Cut it out, put it on your monitor, put it on your mirror in your car. Do it, but do it, do it, do it, do it. It's very simple. Here they are. If it is to be, it is up to me. And that's
Amen.
so true. If
Yeah.
it is to be, it's up to you to do it. It's not up to Bob or Tom or Joe or Sally to do it for you. You got to do it yourself,
Yeah.
you know? And as a great way to use and say this, is I had a son, my oldest natural born son, Aaron, when he was like 15, he was getting his butt in trouble. 14, I guess. And I find, and I mean, he was just his mother and I had been divorced, and you go through quite a bit. And he was doing something really stupid. But he and three or four of his buddies were going down an alley, and they found where they changed all the lights, those 8 foot long neon lights out in the grocery store, and they had them in the garbage can or the dumpster. But there were so many of them they couldn't close the dumpster, so they're taking and throwing them like javelins, right? Okay, breaking them all over. Well, the cops come down the alley and they get the three kids, and they're not like breaking in the store or something, but they're making a mess and it's going to be bad. So obviously they had to clean it all up and all that. Well, when I was on the phone with him, and I just reamed him really good. And but I told him those 10 two-letter words. And I said, Aaron, in another year and a half, you're going to want to get your driver's license. I can't take your test. I can't drive your car for you. It's going to be up to you to go do it. If it is to be, it is up to me. I talked to him about a year ago. No, not even a year ago. I talk to him more often, but I mean, about a year ago, he said to me, "You know what, Dad? I had something today that I ran into, and I thought about something you told me years ago. If it is to be, it is up to me." So 14 to say 49, that was what, 35 years. And he said, I've thought about it off and on, but today was the day I really depended on. So it's if there's so many little simple things, if you keep reminding yourself about it, it does motivate you. You can motivate yourself.
Yes.
There's a certain thing inside you. It's kind of like the strength inside you. While we're kind of on this subject,
Hmm.
if you don't mind, uh, I believe that how you can motivate yourself depends a lot on your DNA. It depends on how you were raised. It depends on who raised you. You can look back and draw strength from your teachers, from your Sunday school teachers, from your neighbors. And where I was raised and back in our day, when they raised you, I mean, if the neighbor caught you doing something bad, he'd whoop your butt too. I mean, it didn't matter. I
Right.
mean, you took care of each other. But but the issue is you can draw strength from pain. You can draw strength from your anger. You can draw strength from frustration, from irritation, from being, what is it that's making you mad? Let that motivate you to move ahead and do something because you can accomplish more than you ever think you can accomplish. It's just, I don't, it's like if I imagine a big wall in front of me that nobody can get through. Everybody's going home. They can't get through it. You mentioned that before about giving up today, or a lot of these people today. I'm I want to get on the other side of the wall. I'm going to, by God, get on the other side. If I got to go
Right.
over it, around it, under it, or if I got to call in air support and blow it to hell, I don't care. But I'm going to get through it. I'm
Right.
going to make it happen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of how and how long it's going to take.
Right.
But I'll get through it.
In the interest of time, let me get to the book just a little bit here too, because that's coming out, and you talk about these things in the book, the mindset, and what your attitude needs to be like. You also tell the stories, of what happened to you a little bit. Um, are there, actionable steps on like how you can start doing this sort of thing, or can you maybe speak to that a little bit, today? Someone who isn't feeling the way you are, how can they start feeling the way that you are?
I, I I learned a lot through my third death, a lot, more than I ever learned through my other ones. Number one, I was older.
Hmm.
Number two, I could look back. But in response to your question, I think if anything, get a piece of paper out and write down maybe some of the things that you can. You got to think ahead. If you're always planning ahead, it's like how many people start out on a trip today and get in their car and they just, oh, I don't know where I'm going, but I got my GPS on. Okay. Back in our days, it's like, how do you get there? Well, you took a this, or you got a Rand McNally road map, or you took an
Right.
atlas, and you wrote down, you went to, I'd take a piece of paper because I owned a semi company too. I was an owner operator. I owned a trucking company. I did Corvette Enterprises. I bought and sold and flipped like 550 cars in 4 years. I did a lot of different things, but make a list and you write your route down. You take Route 34 to Route 51, make a right. Okay. You go to this route 60 miles north. You just make a list. But what is it that you can think about ahead of time? It's like if you're going to go wash your clothes, first of all, you got to get the clothes, you got to get the soap, you got to get your laundry detergent, you got to get your softener if you're going to use a softener, or if you're going to pour it in, or if you're going to use a slip, if you're going to you know, it's all a process. And me being mostly paralyzed, I know my left arm can move around pretty good. My
Hmm.
wrist is fused from bone from my right pelvis, but that's not another, and it's got rods through it. That doesn't, not a big deal. But but the thing is, when I you're going to get up and you're going to take your coffee cup and you're going to move and you're going to take your headphones off and you're going to walk out of your room. Okay, me, I got to sit back. I'm going to have to stretch and because my back is killing me. I've got to reach over here and get my wheelchair turned on. Then I've got to unplug my thing just like you do. Take your headphones off, whatever. But I've got to reach in and make sure that I back up enough before I raise my wheelchair or I'll drag the feet of the wheelchair on the ground. I've got
Hmm.
to think ahead a long way. And so my one suggestion would be is to stop to take stock of what you need to do to get accomplished what you have to do
Hmm.
or where you're going to go. It's like if you're going to make meatloaf, okay, I know I'm going to need meat and maybe celery and crackers or bread, or I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that, or make a meal, whatever it is, and plan it in advance. You just don't go, it's not like you're on Bewitched and you can wiggle your nose and there it is. It's like it takes a lot, and
Right.
that's it's like kind of like with my broken neck. I mean, they told me I would never move. They told me I would never move, and they have me in the Gardner Wells tongs. They put me in a halo cast, which is where they put I got the bolt holes that show here and on
Sure.
the back of my head and stuff. Not a big. I don't. People say to me, "Oh, you got pock marks on your forehead. They're in the same spot on each side." I go, huh, imagine that. I'm lucky, aren't I? But it's not a big deal. But the thing is, when you're going through that, um, I think one thing, kind of going back to your thing, I said, make a list of things that you would use to think about, think ahead. But one thing that I had about 5 months roughly into my broken neck, they had a round table, all the PT, OT, all this and that. And the three things that I took out, I didn't see it until about 4 or 5 years after I was done. And I take away from this. And there's a couple of good points in here. And one was one of the things that they were very concerned about was I talked a lot about my previous injuries, about what I'd been through, what I
Hmm.
had done. And they didn't like that. But I liked it because it showed me what I had been through, what I had accomplished. And now I was in a different situation from a broken neck because don't forget, your neck's broken inside. And you can have broken vertebrae and never bother your cord. You can tear your cord and die and never have a broken vertebrae. Okay, there's a combination, or it's a combination of both. It's
Hmm.
impingement, it's piercing, it's swelling, it's whatever. But yeah, lost my train of thought for just a second. But the yeah, I know where I'm going.
It's all
Uh,
right. They didn't
I
like you
guess
talking about your injuries, is what you were
well
telling
we
me. So,
I guess just the fact that if you look at they were talking about my and I what the reason I thought about it and I talked about it was okay. I remember when this arm wouldn't move because it was so crushed and broken and whatever. Okay, what did I take? What did I do to make it move? How did I do it? And okay, now what did I learn then that I can apply to now? I may have to make it a little different, but I can apply something. So I think a lot of people don't look back. The second thing that I found was that they were concerned because I never quit working out. I never quit working. We had PT and OT. You're supposed to rest between or take your time. I never stopped. I always kept going. And they were. It says, Mr. Setchell works himself not only to the point of exhaustion, but past the point of exhaustion. He doesn't rest. He just doesn't stop. But if I hadn't, would I have ever been able to do what I did? Because they told me I'd never walk, and by God, I'm going to walk.
yeah.
Don't tell me I can't do it. Don't tell me. So I think some of it's maybe an innate built into you as a person,
Hmm.
or like we get back to all the things we've talked about. Everything that happened to me from when I was a little boy built that mindset that I was going to do something. And then the third thing they said was, we don't know how Mr. Setchell is going to accept it psychologically and mentally uh, when he realizes he is never going to walk.
Mm.
Well, I didn't see that. Now, if I had read that or seen that when I was in the hospital when they did it, would that have affected me? Or would it have just made me madder? You know? And they had a young man. I'm going to tell this little story. There's a young man to the left. There were three of us in the room. Young man to the left. I was 31. He was maybe 20. Got hit in the head with a bale of hay that fell out of a haymow. Broke his neck. One broken vertebrae, but it impacted and caused him to lose some of his function. But he was moving his legs and his feet and stuff. And I knew he was going to walk. His name was Bruce Gertner. And anyhow, one day this guy comes in a little white coat and he's looking. And I had never seen the guy before. And the guy says, uh, he's looking at it. And I said, hey, I said, Doc, I said, Bruce is going to walk out of here in 5 or 6 weeks. He's going to get up. He's going to move out. He's going to keep on going. And the guy looks at him. He says, no, no, he's never going to walk. No, he's not going to do it. Bruce was moving his feet. He could move his legs, laying down, horizontal, no stress, no pressure. But that means you got to strengthen it. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean you can't move it.
Right.
And that's bull crap. And so anyhow, I told him, I cussed the guy out, and he looks at me and said something, and I reached down to my left arm and my left hand were working pretty good. And I reached down, and I pulled the tube out of my urinal. I took my urinal and I just chunked the urinal at him. And I threw the urinal. I'm serious. I don't give a crap. I don't care. Hey, I'm a guy that kill me. I don't care. I've already been dead. What are you going to
Right.
do?
What else you gonna do to me?
I don't. I got nothing. I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. And so anyhow, it hit the end of Bruce's bed and splashed all over this guy and splashed on the floor, of course, and the walls. And the guy left, and he was all mad as hell. Well, about 2 3 hours later, I had two men come in, Dr. John Bauer and a guy named Robert A. McDonald. Robert A. McDonald was a director of Sister Kennedy Institute in Minneapolis, and they'd been around for about 85 years back then. And very successful. It's a head trauma, a brain It's a TBI, SCI, spinal cord injury center, strokes a little bit, but it's attached to a huge, huge hospital called Abbott Northwestern. Big, 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 big place. And ours was real small, but very particular, very specialized. And they came in and basically, Mr. McDonald told me, he told me because of what I'd done, my actions and everything, I was going to have to be kicked out of the hospital. I was going to have to out of the institute. I'd have to find someplace else to go through. And I said, no, 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 no. Wait, hold on. You don't know the whole story. And so we went through it. Well, Bruce confirmed it 100%. And Jeff across the room, Jeff was real bad TBI. And I felt he, he was bad. He could hear, he could understand you, but he couldn't talk. But he was grunting and groaning. His acknowledgement of what I was saying was,
Hmm.
true. And so they left. Well, I found out a day, maybe 2 days later, the guy had been an intern. He lost his internship. They booted him out of the hospital. Well, here's an interesting point. Here's an interesting thing. Well, I continued on. Bruce walked out. Bruce left. They took him out in a wheelchair, but he could walk. Limited, but he was going to continue on. He was moving back to the Dakotas to a lesser place. And
Nice.
they took me out to the here about 3 months later. I'd been working on going up and down the stairs on my butt and all this and things you work your arms and work your stuff. And it's really hard to do that when you got that halo cast bulb in your skull because when you when you laugh or when you move much, the blood runs from the pins and it is what it is. And I, I had a day where I finally could go home for a weekend. I finally got to that point. Well, they took me to the door, and I don't want to get real. This is a really bad one because I very seldom can get through without tears or choking up, but I'm going to do it today. And but when they get to a hospital's always got two sets of doors for whatever reason. They got me the first set of doors, and I put my crutches across the front and I stopped them. Boom! Like, what are you doing, Jay? We got to take you to the car. I said, no. I said, I'm walking to the car. My wife's right out there. I'm going to walk to the car. I've been practicing walking. I've been on the parallel bars. I've been doing it. I've been working at this. So, make a long story short, I just said either I do that or take me back to my room. I've got it when I get home. I live in a split level condo. I got to go upstairs or downstairs. I got to go from my garage through the courtyard to my house and get in the house. How am I going to do that if I can't even walk to the car? So anyhow, they finally relented. I got up, locked the wheels tight, got up, and I got to the first set of doors, and the pain was really bad. The emotion was overwhelming, and I could feel myself starting to tear up. You just won your 27th Super Bowl in a row or whatever. I don't know. And you're on top of the world. You had to fight for it. You only won by 1 point, but you did it. And I got to the second door, and there must have been 150, maybe 200 people outside, doctors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, patients, people leaning out windows, people that didn't know me. And they're going, go, Jay, go, Jay, go, Jay, go, or go, go, if they didn't know my name, right? Okay. And they're clapping and they're hollering. I, I, I lost it. I lost it. The tears just overwhelmed me. And my wife helped me into the car, and it's a real hard thing. You got to wiggle to get into the car and stuff. But make a long story short, I got there, got back home, and once I was free to do that, I had to get out. I had tasted freedom, and I'm gone. I'm out mentally. I'm already 3 months down the road for sure. Well, and about 2.5 months later, I was out. I did get out, and I went back off and on twice a week for um, some therapy. But uh, that next spring, we moved back to east of Madison, Wisconsin, about 15 miles, 10 miles, and I had a phone call. My wife and I were playing a Trivial Pursuit. Remember when Trivial Pursuit was big?
Hmm.
And we were playing it with another couple, and it had a couple of drinks and just I don't know, just kind of sitting at the table. And I got a call and says, "Hi, this is Joe Blow from Sister Kenny Institute. And want to talk to Jay Setchell?" I go, "Yeah, okay." So I hung the phone up, and I got a call back again. I hung the phone up again. My wife said, "What's going on?" I said, "I think it's somebody from the company from GTE. They're ragging me, because we used to play jokes on each other all the time."
Okay.
And so she took it. And it rings again. Well, they wanted me up as patient of the year. They had never had a patient of the year. I spoke to the lady. There's a company called Alliant Health, big company. They own 25% of the hospitals now or something in America. And they bought Abbott Northwestern here a few years ago. They own all that crap. And so I spoke to her for an hour and a half. They want me up to speak this next year. And she checked back. She got the information that this other lady took, and they never had but one patient of the year ever, and it was me.
Nice.
And my plaque is sitting right over here, and it says for exceptional rehabilitational achievement and attitude. And I think it's your attitude that controls. It's your attitude, not your aptitude, that controls your altitude.
I love it. I
It's
love it.
good. It's
That's
your
quite the story,
attitude,
brother.
not your. But you know what? The gentleman, here's the karma. Here's the karma. The gentleman that gave me the plaque presented the plaque, and his name is signed on the bottom is Robert A. McDonald, the same guy that was going to kick me out of the hospital. The same guy. And when I talked to the lady from Alliant Health here about 2 months ago, she told me that she said that everything is amazingly wow, because we have the Robert A. McDonald Foundation now, and we have a big supper for it once a year and all this. And it's a big, he's passed away 35 years ago. And so that was 44 years ago for me. Well, it was, yeah, 44 years ago, no, this last 4th of July, that I went through that. So
You
the
started the
guy's
whole
got his
thing.
own foundation. Well, yeah, but the whole thing is you can't give up. It's always too soon to quit. You
Right.
can't give up. It doesn't matter what it is. But where does that come from? I think that just comes from all that I've been through and
Yeah.
all these surgeries. I mean, I've had surgeries that have been 15 hours long. I've
Yeah.
had, you know, it just goes on and on. And but I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop. I don't. I'm not going to do it. And
Yeah.
somebody told me here recently. They said, Jay, you're going to keep going till you're halfway to your grave. I said, no. I said, I'm going to wear a shirt on my way to the grave that says die, then stop. You know, it's like,
Well, I
I,
think you've earned that one with
well,
everything you've been through, brother. So,
it's just, and you know what? And a lot of it is share and help other people. I found one of my biggest joys in my life has been helping other people. And I truly believe the more people you help, the better person you become.
I love it. That's
And
great advice for everybody, man. It really is.
Bill, because the people you help, if you help them in the right way, they're going to pass it on. They're going to understand it. They should feel it. Tell them, let them know,
Got you.
but it is go out and help people that, everybody needs help. I don't care who you are. Everybody can use it. But there's so many out there, and veterans and stuff. When I spoke to a veterans group down here, a thing called well, it's at Brooks Army Medical Center. It's a Wounded Warriors Battalion, and they had a bunch of guys in there, and I was talking to them, or supposed to talk to them, going to talk to them, and I cried. I cried in front of them because they had pizzas. They must have had 20 pizzas stacked there. They had video games, they had computers, they had monitors, they had all this stuff and all these promises about what they were going to do for you after you get out, how they're going to help you. And it's a lie. It's a lie. And I told them, and I cried. I cried openly in front of them. I mean, seriously. I wasn't embarrassed. I'm telling you, I'm crying because they're telling you lies. When you
I
get
hear you.
out, you're on your own, brother. You're on your own. And unless you can hack it, unless you're going to take it, don't depend on them. They're going to disappear. It's kind of like the government telling the Indians, give us your rifles and we'll take care of it. No, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not being political. I'm just being honest.
I hear
It's like, you've got to do it. And I
you.
mean, I've lived it and I've died it and I've been back to tell about it. And that's why I'm saying I'm being honest about it. It's like, get down, you got to get going. And I had this full bird
Yeah.
colonel call me and he said, you didn't exactly say and tell and do what we were hoping you were going to talk about, but you sure as hell told the truth.
Well, that's all you can do, right?
Well, you
Hopefully
got,
your book is going to help people like that, man. You know, who
I,
have to come out and do it on their own because they're not going to get that help.
I hope it is. And everybody needs to realize they have it within them, Rory. Everybody's got it. Everybody has it. It's whether they want to find it or not. Some people are afraid of it. It's like a lot of people are afraid of success. I know people that, it's like, okay, you're hiring them for a good position. What do you expect to make this year? Or what would you like to make? Oh, I'm talking, let's go back to 1985, 60 grand. I want to make 60 grand. It really put me over. That'd put me way, that'd put me, okay. But the job, if you do the job at 110%, it's going to pay you 110,000. Well, they're afraid. What are they going to do with it? And it is odd to realize that some people they're afraid of success. And so they're happy where they're at. And you hear that. I think some people just kind of say, no, I'm good with what I got. I'm okay. And I'm happy for them if they are. But what could they do for others? Because the world's a lot bigger place than you and me.
Right.
It,
For
it's
sure.
it's there- it's not about me. It's about them. What can I do? By the grace of God, I am here. By the grace of God, I'm able to talk to you today. I'm able to share a message. Hopefully, it helps somebody. I really do, and I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. No matter how bad a shape I'm in, I'm truly blessed. I mean, I'm looking forward to the next chapters of my book. I'm looking forward to the company I'm very, very involved in and own 20% of. And we're going national and international already. And I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop.
Good for you, man. Really and truly. I'm looking forward to the book coming out. As we wrap up here, and I love everything you brought today, man. I could listen to your stories forever. How can people reach out to you? How can they find out more about the book? What's your contact info you want to leave for everybody?
Oh, uh, some good questions because well, the book, like you said before, is called The Strength Within You.
Mhm.
It's always too soon to quit. It should be out hopefully within about a month, and they can get it wherever they want. In that, there's I've got a website that I've got a placeholder as you saw, but I don't have anything really on it yet. But they can still send a message. But it's J. Well, the name of the website is Never Quit Trying. Real simple.
Gotcha.
www or whatever, neverquittrying.com. And there's a little thing on it that will come to me, but it's my email on that is J, my first name, at neverquittrying.com.
Nice.
And I think that's it. But and I would like to talk to some people. I've talked to some groups before that people have come up to me. I had a young lady at a alternative high school. They wanted me to talk about a company I had. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But what got me going, and I turned him down twice, but the third time he says, well, the Army's going to be there and an attorney and a doctor. And I said, oh my gosh, these guys, they're not going to, these kids it's an alternative high school. It's kids that have been in trouble and they've had a problem. And the first thing I did when I walked in, I told them, y'all are winners. Y'all are winners. You know why you're winners? because the losers are out there. You're in here because you're still trying. You're
Nice.
still trying. And I told him a little bit about my company. I bought it for about a minute. Then I flipped the script and I said, now let's talk about what it's going to take to get through life. Let's talk about what it's going to take to get through life. And to make a long story short, very, very short. But we spoke for about I had 5 classes, about 55 minutes a class. And in the last class, I told the people, I said, I said I had a person in the first class, didn't pay any attention, didn't take any notes, made no real eye contact. Just he was I didn't use a he or she. They were there, they did this and that, but at least they showed up to class. And I said, in this class, there's a person, another person that's dressed professionally. They've taken notes, they've listened, they've made eye contact, they've nodded their head, they've this and that. Now that other person, I wouldn't have hired on a bet. This
Gotcha.
person I would hire today because they're a different person. They're professional. They're going to make it and they're going to do well. And it's that young lady right over there. And it was a young black lady. And I'm an old white man, right? I mean, I was probably 55 when I did this 20 years ago. And as the class ended up, she came to me, tears streaming down her cheeks. And she stuck her hand out. She said, "Sir, I want to tell you, you have changed my life." And Rory, I had tears. I've got tears in my eyes now. It, it's things like that that can really affect your life. And it affects other people's lives. And what did she share from what she learned? Did she take it home to her brothers and her sisters or her parents or friends? Some people don't want to hear it. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to accept it. Period. End of story. But there's other people that do. But that really that affected me. So, and I've talked to a few other groups too, and and a lot of ladies have tears and some don't. And men have tears and some don't. And, if I had the opportunity to talk a little bit, to speak to somebody as a group, even in person, I mean, that's fine. I would do that. But I, I just think that we all have so much to offer. God gave us all great gifts, and it's up to us to find them. He gives it to it, and and I don't know. I appreciate your opportunity to put me on the show and sharing what I have. And we didn't get into a lot of what I would normally say because how do you sum 76 years up and 70 plus of those years or 65 of those plus years roughly have been in pain and hurt and surgeries and dying and coming back and being here and I have things today that bother me, but still I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to let it stop me.
I hear you,
That's
man.
it.
I hear you. I appreciate you coming on and and being as open as you have been, and sharing these things with everybody. And I know that you put a lot of this in your book, but when folks can hear about it from you firsthand, like you did today, it makes a huge difference, brother. It really does. And I know you put a lot of your heart and your soul in your book, but I think they need to hear it from your voice too. So I'm glad you took the opportunity to talk about a lot of this stuff today. I wish I had more time to keep going into it with you, to be honest, because but I'm with you. I'm not sure there's enough time to really do it justice
Uh,
anyway. So,
well,
maybe we just need to have you on one of my other podcasts and talk about another piece of it. We'll have to take you in chapters, brother. Get your
oh, it's
story out
a. I had a gentleman here
there.
come out of the Houston area. He did 14 hours 2 weeks ago,
Wow.
and he said I probably got 15 to 20 segments, and he said, I mean, because it's like talking about yellow pages, talking about helping people, talk about quality, talk about doing when you do something, do it for that other person, you know, and find out about people, ask people, talk to people, and before you tell somebody something that I think is real important is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. 100%.
100%.
100%, brother. I hear you. I really do. Um,
Well, thank you,
well,
sir.
you
I
got it. I'm
appreciate it.
looking forward to the book, man. I really am. And I'll definitely be on that list of folks who's going to pick that up and read it. Now you're thinking a few more months type of thing. You're just guessing, I know, but
Well, they told me that, like I said, it should be edited by last Friday. I didn't hear from them, so I'm going to call them here this afternoon. But I'm going to follow up hopefully within a month. I
okay,
mean, the cover's done. The book is basically done. It just needs to be, it's going to come out hardback, softback. It's going to be an ebook. It's going to be an Audible book. So it'll be available in all four. And I'm looking at doing another one too. I think the next one may be something about like why ask why? Why not? Why not?
right,
You know,
right on.
it's like, why do you continue to try or why do you continue to work at it? That's a stupid question to me. It's like, why wouldn't you? You know, it's
Yeah.
all about bettering yourself.
Well, when you get to that point, I'd love to have you back on and talk about that too, man.
Good.
Absolutely. So
Rory, thank you, sir.
you got it. All right, folks. That Jay Setchell, the book that's coming out, "The Strength Within You." It's always too soon to quit. Jay, thank you for being on today, man. Really and truly.
You're so welcome. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Folks, that's been another episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason we bring such powerful men on here with such powerful stories is because we are united in hoping that you can find your power so that you can become a better provider, a better protector, a better leader tomorrow than you are today. So you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. It's because you're worth it. You just have to believe it. Until next time.